them well. I know Putin. I know President Xi. I know Kim Jong-un of North Korea. I know every one of them. And let me tell you, people will say, oh, this is terrible. He said, I'm not saying anything good or bad. They're at the top of their game. They're tough. They're smart. They're vicious. And they're going to protect their country, whether they love their country. They probably do. It's just a different form of love, but they're going to protect their country. But these are tough people at the top of their game. And when they see a Kamala or when they see Biden, Sleepy Joe, they can't even believe it. They can't believe this happened. All the stuff that you're seeing now, all the horror that you look at Israel, they're all waiting for an attack from Iran. Iran would not be attacking, believe me. You know, when I was there, and I say it with respect, because I think we would have been good with Iran. I don't want to do anything bad to Iran, but they knew not to mess around. Iran was broke because I told China, if you buy from Iran oil, it's all about the oil. That's where the money is. But if you buy oil from Iran, you're not going to do any business.
I got Trump's live space live here.
And I meant it. And they said, we'll pass. They didn't buy oil. Other countries, likewise. You want to buy, you're not doing business with the United States. And they were at a point where they had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for any of these instruments of terror. And it was amazing. In fact, there were articles when I was leaving, which is hard to believe, actually, especially when you look at what's happened to our country. Our country is so bad right now. It's such a different place. We were respected. Think of it. 4 years ago, we were so respected to a point where when I said don't buy oil, they didn't buy oil. But they had no money.
Trump has been talking for a while.
Israel would have never been attacked.
But I want to share a couple things.
Zero chance. And again, I said to Vladimir Putin, I said, don't do it. You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day. You cannot do it. And I told him things that what I do. And he said, no way. And I said, way.
So,
and you know, it's the last
he's been
time we ever
talking
had
about the foreign policy.
He would never have done. I got along well with him. I hope to get along well with him again. You know, getting along well with them is a good thing, not a bad thing. I got along well with Kim Jong-un.
And he made a great point.
When I met with President Obama just before entering, you know, it's a sort of a ritual. And I sat down with him and we talked. It was supposed to be for a very short period of time. It turned out to be a long period of time. I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea.
Themselves, like Venezuela.
I had that problem worked out very quickly. It was nasty at the beginning with Rocket Man and, you know, all the different things. But all of a sudden, I got a call.
Basically emptying.
Yeah, they were epic. Everything. He said that he has a red button on his desk. I have a red button on my desk too, but my red button is much bigger, and my red button works.
I'm not.
And then I called him Little Rocket Man. If Little Rocket Man. Anyway, here's the bottom line. All of a sudden, I got a call from them.
That's
they said they want to meet. They want to meet me. And we met, as you remember, we met in Singapore. We met also in Vietnam. And I got along with them great. We were in no danger. But President Obama thought we were going to end up in a war, a nuclear war with him. And let me tell you, he's got a lot of nuclear stuff, too.
Exactly.
He's got plenty of nuclear. He can do plenty of damage.
Elon is guiding the conversation fairly well.
People
and Trump is working with him. I'm betting.
You know,
bet a long talk yesterday. I'm betting
not weakness.
Well,
and
he and I had a good relationship.
You know,
remember I met him and we walked onto his land. Nobody ever walked onto his land before.
And how do I put it?
I wouldn't say. Let's bring up Secret Service again. I wouldn't say they were thrilled when I did that. I walked onto his land.
And we'll talk about some.
It was an amazing period.
Foreign policy stuff.
But we were not in danger with him because of me.
When I started,
you know, I always say that. We have enemies on the outside and we have enemies on the inside. We have some really bad people in our government and people that are controlling of the people.
Great point by Trump
I mention names, but I really don't want to give them the credit.
Government,
but we have some really bad, and I say they're more dangerous than Russia and China.
Powers,
if you have a smart president, a president
taking advantage of it,
we are not in danger from those countries because they need us and they need our help. I mean, we forced Obama, if you think about it, Obama and Biden, and Bush to a certain extent, in all fairness, forced Russia and China together.
Yep.
And
great point
if you're a history student, the first thing you learn is you cannot let Russia and
Bush,
China
Obama, and
but then
Biden
they also got
Russia
take a look,
and
Iran,
China together.
And they have North Korea. That's,
and
you know, they call it the axis of evil.
And the Russians and Chinese hate each other
for evil. Here we have a modern day axis of evil.
They don't want to be with China. Okay,
powerful
Putin wanted
countries,
it to be with
very
the
heavy
West, and
nuclear,
one of
which
few
is the
great
biggest
ideas
threat.
Bill
You know,
Clinton
the
now is
biggest
getting
threat is
Russia
not
into
global
NATO
warming,
and
where the
reorging
ocean's going to
NATO
rise
against China,
1/8 of an
okay?
inch over the next
But
400 years. The big, and
as well as the Middle Eastern
you'll have more
terrorists and all that,
oceanfront property, right?
you
The
know.
biggest threat is not that. The
It's kind
biggest
of
threat is
sad.
nuclear warming, because we have 5 countries
Well,
now that
yeah.
have significant nuclear power, and we have to not allow anything to happen with stupid people like Biden. You know, Biden did something with Russia. There was no chance of him ever going in. And when I left, and then after I left, they started forming big armies on the border with Ukraine,
Yeah.
right? And I looked at that, and I thought he was doing that because Putin's a good negotiator. I thought he was doing that to negotiate. But then Biden started saying such stupid things. For instance, he said that it can be a NATO country. Now,
Yeah.
Russia, for as long as there's been NATO, has said we're never going to agree to that. And
Great
we
point,
go right
great
up front and say that. And we did things and said things through this president with a low IQ, very low IQ. He had a low IQ 30 years ago, by the way, but now he might not even have a IQ at all. There's nothing on the board.
He called Biden a vegetable.
He said
He's
things
called Biden a vegetable
that
about
were
4 times already.
so stupid that war would have been, that war had zero chance of happening if I were there. Zero chance. He was saying everything the opposite. Everything the opposite. And it's so sad because many more people have been killed in Ukraine than you read about. You don't read about how bloody it is and how disastrous.
Sure.
Hey, look, just in the 2 armies, you lost 500,000 people. And you know, Ukraine's having a hard time. Ukraine, I don't know if you saw the article recently.
Sharing the link out there.
You don't hear the true story. But if you think about it, Russia's gone, you know, Russia defeated Germany with us, and they defeated Napoleon. You know, they've been around a long time. They're a big fighting force.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's very unfair. And Ukraine now doesn't have enough men. They're now using young men and very old men to fight. And
now the media
we're in a very
will have
bad
you think that
position,
Russia is the one
and
losing this war.
I'm not going to blame
When
exclusively, but I can tell you, I could have stopped that. And a smart president could have stopped that. It wouldn't
Russia
have
is a
happened.
great like,
But we had a man that
it's
actually
a great
made
nation.
it.
Ukraine is not.
It made it more prevalent. It
devastating
was so
population
bad.
generation.
The words that he
and
was
the question
using,
you got to have is,
the stupid
you know,
threats
all the
coming from a
Western influence
stupid
on
face
this war
that
with
he was
the
using.
money
I
involved
said,
and
this
all
guy's
that.
going to cause
Like,
us a war. He's going to cause us. And let me tell you, it can lead to World War III. That can lead to World War III. The Middle East can lead to.
How much money
We
is being
have
given to the
numerous
Ukrainian
places that could
politicians
end up in a World War
pushing
III
this
right
war?
now for no reason
No,
whatsoever.
I think you're right. I think people underrate the risk of World War III, and it's just you know, when you're looking at the risk of global thermonuclear warfare, it's game over for humanity. And you know, it's something that people have, I think, after the end of the Cold War, people have become complacent about, but they actually have forgotten that there are currently a lot of nuclear missiles that have targeting parameters for the United States from other
100%.
countries.
And one of the things
And,
we're going to do is
it's-
we're going to build an Iron Dome over us. You know, Israel has it. We're going to have the best Iron Dome in the world. We need it, and we're going to make it all in the United States. But we're going to have protection, because it just takes one maniac to, you know,
Now
start
Trump
something.
is
We're going to have protection.
Trump wisely.
We're going to have. Why shouldn't we have
is
an Iron
talking
Dome?
about putting up an
Israel
Iron
has
Dome
one.
over the U.S.
Some other places have one that nobody even knows about.
Which
frankly,
Russia has over large parts of its
Israel
country.
has it. We're going to have an Iron Dome. But you know, with all of that being
why
said,
don't we
to me,
have
that's
defenses in our
so
country?
important, the most
You know?
important. But with all of that being said, the election's coming up, and the people want to hear about the economy.
Even if
And
it's,
the fact that they
absolutely
can't
sure.
buy
stop
groceries
all-out nuclear
because they
war,
don't have
right?
enough money to buy
If
groceries.
Russia
The
decides to launch,
inflation has killed them.
just a
Food
week
prices
later
are up
on,
50, 60,
but
even 100%
we can't
in
stop
some
maniac
cases.
nations like
And
Ukraine
this stupid administration allowed this to happen.
Ukraine,
And it's a shame.
Iran or Korea,
And that's the thing that people
North Korea,
most
who
care
will
about,
never
in my
have the
opinion. They care
capacity
about the border a
to
lot. And we discussed the
do
border
something
at great length.
insane,
It's nice to have a forum like
insanely
this where I can
large,
discuss something at
you know,
length. And by the way, you think Biden could do this interview? Do you think that Kamala could do this interview? They would take a pass
No,
on you.
they could not.
So they don't need Elon. They don't need Elon screaming out questions. It's pretty sad when you think that somebody that does this for a living can't answer a question or is afraid to do an interview. And in her case, with a very friendly interview, she's got all friendly interviewers.
So I wish
It's
someone
pretty
would
Yes,
ask me live.
But the
absolutely.
big thing now is the
Well, I
economy,
said-
Elon.
yeah.
And
He doesn't
as
think
much
that
as
the EU
Yeah.
could put iron
I
dome
mean,
over
I
the
view
US.
nuclear as the single
you
most
can-
important
you
thing,
can
but a lot of
can,
people
because
don't.
you're
A
not
lot of
protecting
people
all
don't
of it,
understand that, but
you know?
it doesn't have to. If I understand it, that's all you need. Because if I was president, you're not going to have that kind of a problem. But the thing that they really is making them angry is what Kamala and Biden have allowed to happen to the economy. It's a disaster with inflation. The inflation, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you make. The inflation is eating you alive. If you're a worker or if you're just a middle income person, you can't afford. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, people were saving a lot of money. Today, they're using
Yeah.
all their money and borrowing money
Now let's
just to
circle
live.
back to the economy
It's
again.
a horrible thing
Right.
that's
I
happening.
just took my meds, so I'm gonna
And
have
we'll
to
end that
while
Well, I
quickly.
think a lot of
relax.
yeah,
And-
a lot of people just don't understand where inflation comes from. Inflation comes from government overspending because the checks never bounce when it's written by the government. So
Yeah,
if the,
the Elon,
if the,
great
if the
point.
government
You know,
spends far more than it brings in, that increases the money supply. And if the money supply increases faster than the rate of goods and services, that's inflation. So really, we need to have
essentially the
we
government
need to
could,
reduce
if the
our
government doesn't restrain its
spending.
spending because the
And
government
we
also
need
prints
to
money,
re-examine.
issues
I think
debt,
we
it
need like a
basically
government efficiency
causes
commission
inflation.
to say like, hey,
that's the
where are we
next
spending
one.
money that's sensible? Where is it not sensible?
Right.
And we need to live within our means. We're currently adding, I think, $1 trillion to the deficit roughly
Right.
every 100 days.
That's right.
And the interest payments on the national debt
So-
have now exceed the defense budget. It's on the order of $1 trillion.
It's interest.
And it's
You're
and
not
it
talking
keeps,
about the
it keeps
national
I
debt.
growing.
rebuilt our military, largely rebuilt our military, did a great job on it, which was so important. We had jets, we had fighters that were, and bombers that were 70 years old. And we did a great job in that. Then we gave 85 billion of it back to Afghanistan, if you can believe it. We gave them 85 billion. They're one of the largest sellers of military equipment in the world. They're selling what we gave them. That was one of the most embarrassing days in the history of our country. But if you think about, let's go back to the economy. We have to bring energy prices down. Energy started it.
Circle back to
The
the
price
economy.
of gasoline.
The ridiculous
Now, your cars
prices
don't
we're dealing
require
with.
too much gasoline.
And energy is the root of it.
You have a good.
I
and
mean,
you
I
do
don't
make
want. I
a
don't.
great product,
Obviously,
I have to
long
say.
term,
I
we
have
have
to be
to.
honest with you.
thank
That
you.
doesn't mean
Nuclear power and
everybody should
whatnot,
have an
but-
electric car, but these are minor
you need-
details. But your product is incredible. But the gasoline, Elon, is the cost of energy. Not only gasoline, it's the cost of heating your house and cooling your house. That has to come down. It's gone up 100%, 150, and 200%.
Yep, he's right.
And
it's gone up 100%.
that has to come down.
plus-
When that comes down, and we're going to drill, baby, drill. They stopped drilling, and then they went back to drilling because they went back to the Trump policy. But if they won the day after they get into office,
Well, that's not
we're
strictly
going
speaking.
to this country will go out of business because they're going to go to an energy policy that's not sustainable.
They're not doing any
and different
long-term
things.
oil development.
You're not going to have anything.
The
And
biggest
I know you're a
impact
big
that
fan of the
Reverend Brady
AI.
economically with us
And I have to
was
say
when the
that
Biden admin, when they
AI,
kicked
and this
stopped
is
the
shocking to
pipeline,
me, but AI requires twice the energy that the country already produces for everything.
Canada
So
down
you're going to have to
to
build. We're going to have to build a lot of energy if our country will be competitive with
down to
China,
the
because
refineries in
that's our
Texas, where
primary
the few places that could have
competitor
refinery.
for this.
And we
on
cut it
the
off. Now
AI.
they're shipping it all
You're
overseas
going to
to
need a
China.
lot of
Well, I mean-
electricity. You're going to need tremendous electricity, like almost double what we produce now for the whole country, if you can believe it.
Sure. Well, just going, back to this, like this basic thing, that people try to make it sound complicated, but it's not. But inflation is caused by government overspending. Would you agree that we need to take a look at government spending and have perhaps a government efficiency commission that just tries to make the spending sensible and so the country lives within its means,
Yeah,
just like
cool
a
The
person does?
waste is incredible, and nobody negotiates prices.
Yep.
You used
Check
to have a
this
lot of
background
people
out for this
making
one.
jets, and you end up with two companies, and they'll probably try and merge at some point. I mean, I went through it, like Air Force, just a thing like Air Force One. One of the first documents they asked me to sign, a general walks in, "Sir, would you please sign this document?" And what is it? Air Force One. That's with Boeing, which is basically two planes, two 747s. And the price was
Yeah.
$5.7 billion for 2 planes. Now,
Wow.
now they're highly sophisticated.
That's
They're
insane.
even nicer than your plane, okay? But much more sophisticated. They're very, I won't say what's on it, but they got a
There
lot
we
of
go.
stuff on it.
Trump
Anyway,
defiant
but it's
behind
5.7.
me.
That's a crazy
It's
number.
a crazy number, but I said, I'm not going to pay 5.7. I'm not going to do it. I said, who made the deal? Obama and his people. I said, well, then I know the deal's no good.
Ukraine's
I'm
a
not going to
puppet
do it.
state, by the way.
And over a course of about 4 weeks, by my saying I'm not going to do it, I got the price reduced by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane, other than we had a nicer paint job, if you want to know the truth. But for the exact same plane, I saved one. And I said to Boeing, man, you guys must make a lot of money if you can reduce the price by that. But now what I do hear is that they're going back to the Biden administration and wanting big cost overruns, because they see these dopey suckers in there, and they'll end up getting some of the money back. But I shaved it by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane. And you can now take that and multiply that out times thousands of other
Exactly.
items.
Multiply it by
Yeah,
a
the
zillion,
numbers are
and yeah.
astronomical. I agree with you.
Well, I mean, I think it would be great to just have a government efficiency commission that takes a look at these things and just ensures that the taxpayer money, the taxpayers' hard-earned money, is spent in a good way. And I'd be happy to help out on such a commission.
I'd love
if it were formed.
Well, you're the greatest cutter. I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay. You're all gone. You're all gone. So every one of you is gone, and you are the greatest. You would be very good. Oh, you would love it. But, if you look at Argentina.
Well, I'd be happy to help
by the way,
out.
congratulations. I
Yeah.
just looked at the number of people that are listening to you and I chat. We'll call it a chat. But congratulations. This is very good. I mean, it's great. And you're an interesting character.
Over a million people.
New head of a place called Argentina, and he's a big,
Malay's awesome.
he's great, and he's a big MAGA fan. That he ran on MAGA, and he took it to an extreme too. He ran on MAGA, and I hear he's doing really a terrific job. It's called Make Argentina Great Again. It worked out perfectly. He came in, he bought a lot of hats, he brought everything, but he's doing a big job. He really cut. And I'm hearing they're starting to do pretty well. Inflation's getting down. They had like 2,000%.
Exactly.
They had inflation like not normal inflation. They had the real deal. But we're going to have that pretty soon. I think we have the worst inflation we've had in 100 years. They say it's 48 years. I don't believe it. I think we have the worst. They don't include a lot of the items that should be included.
Yeah. Well, it's just from the government overspending and not spending taxpayer money effectively, and having just so many departments you can't even name them all. And what Milei is doing is he's cutting government spending. He's simplifying things. He's putting in regulations that make sense. And Argentina overnight is experiencing a giant improvement in prosperity, but it's also a lesson for the United States, which is that
now they mentioned Argentina and
Argentina used to be one of the most prosperous countries in the world.
He wins, keeps winning down there.
In
all the evidence
in the 30s, 40s, and because of bad government policy, it ruined the country. And if you take Venezuela, for example, Venezuela should be incredibly prosperous. They have phenomenal reserves of everything, oil, everything, and it should be prosperous. But if the government's wrong, it impoverishes the people. And so I think we should not be complacent in the United States in thinking that and taking our prosperity for granted, because if with bad government policy, we can run the country into the ground. And that's just something people should bear in mind. Don't take prosperity for granted.
Well, think of education.
Yeah.
So we're ranked at the bottom of every list.
You can't take
of the
prosperity
top
for
40.
granted.
We're ranked
And I think
number
people
40,
did.
number 38.
People got complacent about that bullshit over the past 40 years.
Norway,
And basically, that's one of the reasons that
Switzerland,
the Marxists were
Sweden,
able to
different countries
slither
are
in
ranked
like snakes. Or,
good. Actually,
as
China's
Nietzsche says,
pretty close to the top. They're a top 6 or 7. But we're ranked at the bottom, almost at the bottom, 38, 39, 40. In other words, horrible. And yet we
evil deed
spend
is
more
like a
per
boil.
pupil
It's
than any other
bold. It says,
country in
"I'm
the world. So
here,
we spend more.
embolden me," and all that.
And what I'm going to do, one of the first acts, and this
Whereas
is where
a
I
bad
need an
thought is
Elon
like,
Musk.
let
I
him
need
live a
somebody
fun
that
guy.
has a lot of
You don't even notice it at
strength
first,
and
but
courage and
eventually
smart.
you don't notice.
I want to close up Department of
Lots of
Education,
people
move
will come back.
education back to the
And that's
states,
how
where
Yeah.
where
that's
states like
basically what complacency.
Iowa, where states like Idaho, not every state will do great because states that basically aren't doing good now. You look at Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He's terrible. He does a terrible
He's
job. So
now
he's
in
not going to
Newsom.
do great with education. But of the
Yeah.
50, I would bet that 35 would do great, and 15
Yeah.
of them, or 20 of them will be as good as Norway. Norway is considered great. You can
1.3
name them. I
plus.
mean, they're so good. Some
Yeah.
of these countries are so good. But if you go into some of these really well-run
1.3
states,
plus
we have
million
states that
listeners
don't
right
know
now.
what debt is. We have states that have low taxes, no debt, everybody working. They're really well run.
Sure.
And maybe they have certain advantages in terms of location, in terms of the land or the sun and the water and the whole thing. There are a lot of advantages that some people have. But if you moved education back to the 50, you'll have some that won't do well, but they'll actually be forced to do better because it'll be a pretty bad situation.
Yeah,
But if you think about
remind
it,
people,
you'll have some of
Yeah.
these
if you
states. I'll
don't
bet
vote
you'd
for
have 30,
Trump,
35
no matter
states.
who else you're voting
It'll
for,
be much
you
better.
voted
And you know
Biden.
what it'll cost? Less than
Remember
half
that.
what
The
it is
only two candidates who can
in
win.
Washington. And
Yeah.
these people don't care
Well,
about
yeah.
the students in these, faraway states. And it'd be unbelievable.
Yeah. I think you're making a good point in that if the states have to if each state has to compete against other states, then people will naturally
right.
move to states where it's better.
Well, like California, as we said, it's a badly run state. I could go through. I got so many friends that are in those states, even if they're Democrats. I hate to mention certain states, but Illinois is badly run with Pritzker. He's a real loser. But
Yeah.
some of these places are just badly run. But it's almost going to force them to run better, and they won't do a good at initially.
It's forbidden.
You're not going to do
by the-
worse than you're doing right now. And I would say that
Yeah.
the cost, you would cut your cost by 50 or 60%. And you'd have a little
Yeah, yeah.
monitor. You want to make sure they're teaching English as an example. Give us
Yeah.
a little English, right?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. No, but I mean, to what? I mean, some of these governors are doing so badly. I mean, they got so many people moving out of their state. They should get U-Haul Salesman of the Year award.
Hey, Ronnie G, how you doing, my friend?
It's actually amazing.
People moving out.
Isn't it amazing to you as a businessman that they can even survive? Like Illinois.
I'm
many
talking
people
about
are leaving,
the
and
Trump
you wonder,
thing
how
right
do
now.
they
Doing some
survive? I mean,
here, Ronnie
how do
G.
they survive?
Maybe if I'm done, it depends.
I saw where you left California and you moved to Texas. Texas does a great
I'm on the
job.
East Coast here,
But, I
Yeah.
mean, I just wonder, how do these states survive when big businesses, a big oil company just left California, as you know?
I'll
and
see
they
it.
moved
I'll
to
see.
Texas.
I'm
How
going
do
to stick
these
with this
big
Trump thing
states
for probably another
survive when they
15
lose
to
so many
15, like 10,
businesses
15 or so.
and their taxes are already really high? The taxes are among the highest
Yeah.
taxes. You almost wonder, how do they continue on? And in many cases, the governors
Yeah, I'll
don't
see.
do a
I
good
gotta
job,
see
and
my.
their crime
I might be able to do it from my
you wonder,
phone,
how do they
like,
continue to just
laying
go
down or
on?
something, because I could you
It's
can talk
not.
like
It's
that.
Well,
not a
I
good
think there's-
situation.
But
I mean, I think the only thing that's going to force some of these states to change is if they risk bankruptcy and they're not getting bailed out by the federal
Right.
government.
Right. Well,
That's
you're
the
going to
only thing
have
that's going to
that.
get them to change.
You remember the area in California where they had that, where I guess somebody had sticky fingers and they stole a lot of money.
yeah, it's a great
And,
interview. You have a good
They went
conversation going.
into a form of
They're not even
chapter,
at the point where they have questions
and it
from
was
audience.
very nasty
Yeah, yeah.
for a period
The
of
point
time.
of
But
these
now
spaces
it's
is so the
probably the
audience
most
could ask
popular
questions
place
or
in all of
something.
California. So
And this thing
at
could be
some
going for 2
point,
more hours. I'm not going to
something like that may have to happen. But the problem is, you can't penalize people that loan money to the state when you have incompetent people like a Pritzker. Look, the family didn't want him in the family business, and then he ends up being governor of Illinois. So what is he going to be? Is he going to be a great governor? And you have people. I could name every one of them. I got to know every one of
Yep.
these, and some are very good, and some are just horrible.
Well, I think that, I mean, the larger point here too, as you're saying, like a lot of people are concerned about the economy, a lot of people are concerned about inflation, and inflation is effectively a tax on people that save money,
Yeah.
and for people that are working day to day, it's just a form of taxation. And if we can solve the government spending problem, we'll solve the inflation problem, which means people will have a better standard of living,
Yeah.
and that's a really big
Well,
deal.
the people that got hurt worst are the people that did it the way they were taught to do it all through, their younger life and their young life and their whole life. The people that saved money and then they got no interest on their money and inflation destroyed them.
Yeah.
And frankly, they were almost
Inflation
better off if they
destroyed
didn't do
anyone
anything
with
like that. I mean,
moderate
those people
savings.
have been
Anyone with
absolutely
good savings got
decimated.
the inflation.
And we're going to bring those people back and help those people. We've got to get the prices down. When I look at bacon costing 4 or 5 times more than it did a few years
Sure.
ago, when you look at some of the food products in grocery stores, people go, they can't believe it. They used to be able to buy a whole cart, and today, a lot of people just don't have the money. They go in and they can't buy anything. They look at it's sticker shock. They call it sticker shock, right?
I think it really just comes, like I said, I think it just comes down to really, I guess, two things, which is that if you solve government overspending, you solve inflation, which improves living standards of the average person, and then if you deregulate, like have sensible regulations, so because a lot of the regulations are nonsensical and cause the cost to be extreme for no reason, but unless you've got effective deregulation, like Reagan did a great job on deregulation in the 80s, but it's been 40 years since we had anyone really. I mean, during your administration, we made some progress, but
in defense of the Clinton administration,
there's opportunity to make
Clinton and Gore
progress
did do a
with
bit
sensible
of
regulation.
not as much as Reagan did.
Well, Elon,
those two things,
quite a bit of stupid
Those are the big
regulation.
deal.
we set a record.
Like, for example, one
we
that
did more
was really stupid
deregulation and more restrictions
according to
on
FDA,
all of the
when you
different
after you,
businesses
like,
than any other
slaughter,
president.
cut up meat and slaughtered it.
Remember, I had
you
the rule for
constantly
every
close
one
down
we
the
put in,
forest
you have to
to
get
wash
rid of
away the
at
blood.
10 or 12.
Just
And we did
anti-rabies.
radical
Roach
cuts
said
on
that
all
was
of that,
forbidden
and a
for
lot of
safety
that's
reasons,
being put back
so
by
you
this
would get fined
administration.
whichever way you did.
And we did radical cuts on things that weren't necessary. But we were all set. We had the best economy ever, maybe in the world. And then what happened is COVID came in, and we had to focus on that, and nobody knew what it was. And I always say I got good marks on economy, good marks on military. We knocked out ISIS. We did so many different things. We rebuilt. But, I never got the credit that we really deserved on what we did with COVID. We never got the credit. But had that not happened, a gift from China, from Wuhan, came in from Wuhan, the Wuhan labs, and I always
Trump
said
is
it, and
very,
it turned out to be right.
without saying directly, he's
had that
basically
not
saying
happened, we were
on
set to start reducing debt. We were going to reduce taxes further. I gave the largest tax cuts, and we were going to reduce taxes still further for middle income people, not only businesses. But we did it for businesses because they're the ones that's why we had the great job numbers. But we were set to really start reducing debt. And, we're sitting on the biggest pile of liquid gold anywhere in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Russia. And we were going to drill, and we were going to make so much money. We were going to supply Europe with oil. I had stopped the Russian pipeline, and we were going to supply them with oil and gas. We were going to make a fortune. And then the COVID came in, and we really had to divert. Then what happened is when they came in, we kept a lot of businesses alive. If I didn't do what we did, we would have had a 1929 type depression.
Yeah,
but the problem is when Biden came in, he got trillions of dollars and just started spending it stupidly. You didn't need it anymore. We got over that bad period where everybody was dying and feeling, it was just not a good period. Interestingly, during his administration, many more people died during his administration of COVID than during my administration. And we really got the brunt of it. But people don't realize more people died during his administration than ours. But it diverted us from doing what I wanted to do. But we had the greatest for, almost 3 years. We had the great, and that probably better than anybody. So many of your friends said to me, the best years we've ever had in business were during the Trump years. And also said that African American, Hispanic American
Yep.
were so incredible.
The first
They
2 or
were
3
having the
years of
best
Trump's
Asian American
presidency
women, men,
was record
young
wage
people without
increases,
a diploma, young
all
people that
Americans,
graduated from the best colleges,
but particularly for
from
minorities.
MIT, from the Wharton School, from all of the great colleges, Harvard. They were doing better, and people without a diploma were doing better, and everybody was happy. And then COVID came, and we had the problem is they spent trillions and trillions of dollars. They wasted. They shouldn't have taken any money, and we wouldn't be having inflation right now, which is killing our country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I should probably say something about maybe my views on climate change and oil and gas, because I think I'm probably different from what most people would assume. Because my views are actually pretty, I think, moderate in this regard, which is that I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry and the people that have worked very hard in those industries to provide the necessary energy to support the economy. And if we were to stop using oil and gas right now, we would all be starving, and the economy would collapse. So it's I don't think it's right to sort of vilify the oil and gas industry. And the world has a certain demand for oil and gas, and it's probably better if the United States provides that than some other countries. Sure. And it would help with prosperity in the U.S. And at the same time, obviously, my view is like we do over time want to move to a sustainable energy economy, because eventually you do run out of. I mean, you run out of oil and gas. It's not not infinite. And there is some risk. I think the risk is not as high as a lot of people say it is with respect to global warming. But I think if you just keep increasing the parts per million in the atmosphere long enough, eventually it actually simply gets uncomfortable to breathe. People don't realize this. If you go past 1,000 parts per million of CO2, you start getting headaches and nausea. And so we're now in the sort of 400 range. We're adding, I think, about roughly 2 parts per million per year. So I mean, it still gives us. So what it means is like we still have quite a bit of time, but
okay,
so it's not like we don't need to rush, and we don't need to stop farmers from farming or
the real reason
prevent people from having steaks or basic stuff like that. Like you can leave the farmers alone.
I agree. How crazy is that? Where I mean, you have farmers that are not allowed to farm anymore and have to get rid of their cattle, and the whole world is a little crazy. But it's largely
which is crazy because now there apparently is a study.
I do say though, I've
that
heard
shows that cattle,
in terms of the fossil fuel,
are actually a net positive
even
for the
to
environment because they
create
carbon,
the electric
so
car and create the electricity needed for the electric car. Fossil fuel is what really creates that at the generating plants, and so you sort of can't get away from it at this moment. I mean, someday you might be able to, but I do hear we have anywhere from 100 to 500 years left. Much of it hasn't even been found yet.
Yeah.
But there are tremendous, like ANWR. I got ANWR in Alaska approved. Ronald Reagan couldn't do it. Nobody could do it. Everybody tried. Nobody could do it. I got it approved. The first thing that Biden did was unimprove it to get rid of it. He ended it. His
another thing.
His secretary went in and she ended it. And what a disgrace. That's ANWR. That's bigger, or they think it could be bigger than Saudi Arabia in Alaska. Could be bigger than Saudi Arabia. But they went in and they terminated it. And I'll get it going very quickly, because not only is it big for Alaska, I mean, you talk about economic development, that for the United States, I mean, that is, they say bigger than Saudi Arabia or the same size.
The important thing here is
pure, really good
the United
stuff.
States has strong environmental regulations
so I think
on
we have,
wells.
Countries
like
perhaps
Venezuela,
hundreds of years left. Nobody really knows. But during that time, something will come around that will be very good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and my estimate would be, a little more aggressive than that. But it's not the sort of like we're all going to die in 5 years stuff. That's obviously BS. But
good point.
I mean, my view is like if you just look at sort of the parts per million that increments every year, you get sort of 2 or 3 parts per million every year of CO2.
It's getting bogged down.
I mean, I think some of that it's problematic if it accelerates. If you start going from 2 or 3 to say 5, and then there may be some situations where you get just a step change increase in the CO2. and I think we don't want to get too close to 1,000 ppm, because like that's actually makes it uncomfortable to breathe. Like just existing in 1,000 ppm
Okay, Elon, time to move
CO2
off
is
the subject.
uncomfortable. That's like that's considered like an industrial hazard,
Right?
Just so it's that's actually, you start getting headaches and stuff. So it's even without global warming, it's not comfortable to live. So we don't want to get too close to that. But I mean, I think we've got. I think we want to just move over, and like, and if I don't know, 50 to 100 years from now, we're I don't know, mostly sustainable. I think that'll probably be okay.
Elon,
So
okay.
it's not like the
So yeah,
the
a
house is
little,
on
little
fire
bit bogged
immediately,
down
but
in technical
I think
details,
it is
but
something we need to move towards.
he's
And
making a great point
on,
about
you know,
the real
on
problem is
balance,
we
it's
really want
probably
to
better to
more
move
goal so 150 years
there
from now
faster
is when
than
we're done with it.
slower. But like I said, without vilifying the oil and gas industry, and without causing hardship in the short term, I think this can be done. Without, you know, people can still have, you know, a stake, and they can still drive gasoline cars, and they, you know, it's okay. It's like, it's not. I don't think we should vilify people for it, but I think we should just generally lean in the direction of sustainability. I actually think solar is going to be a majority of Earth's energy generation in the future, and it's certainly trending that way. And so you get the solar power, combine that with batteries, so because obviously the sun doesn't shine at night, and then you use that to charge the electric cars, and you have a long-term sustainable solution.
Okay,
Elon, and you know, that's what
Tesla
Tesla's trying to move things towards, and I think we've made a lot of progress in that regard. But when you look at our cars, we don't believe that environmentalism, that caring about the environment should mean that you have to suffer. So we make sure that our cars are beautiful, that they drive well, that they're fast, they're
good point.
Sexy. I mean, they're cool. In fact, literally, I mean, the sexy joke, Model S, Model 3, Model X, and Y spells out sexy. It was probably the most expensive joke out there.
Okay, now you sound like he's doing advertising.
I don't know, I like cheesy humor, you know. So, but I'm a big fan of, like, let's have an inspiring future, and let's work towards, you know, a better future, and we can do so without demonizing people.
I'm okay. You know, it's very interesting. You use the word global warming, and today they use the word climate change because, you know, you have some places that go up and stuff. So they were getting themselves in a little trouble with the word global warming, because not every place is warming. Some places are going the opposite direction. But, you know, I'm sort of waiting for you to come up with solar panels on the roofs of your cars and on the trunks of the cars. And it just seems like something that at some point you will come up with. I'm sure you'll be the first. But it would seem that a solar panel on the roofs, you know, on flat surfaces, on certain surfaces might be good.
Yeah.
At least in certain areas of the country where you have the world where you have the sun. But I would think, and I have no idea because that's not my world, but I would think that this would be something that would be interesting. But, you know, the one thing that I don't understand is that people talk about global warming or they talk about climate change, but they never talk about nuclear warming. And to me, that's an immediate problem, because you have, as I said, 5 countries where you have major nuclear, and you know, probably some others are getting there.
What a way for Trump to switch the
very dangerous. That's where you need a strong American president, because you don't want to have this proliferation. But you have 5 countries and getting more. You know, China is much less than us right now, but they're going to catch us sooner than people think. They're way lower. Russia and us are number 1, and I mean, we're sort of tied. And China is far behind, but they're developing at a level that, you know, you're not surprised.
Okay, I'm going to go to
10-15. They'll end up catching up.
And at that point,
maybe even surpassing. But to me, the biggest problem is not climate change. It's not, and everything's, you know, a problem, but it's degrees. To me, the big problem is the nuclear power. The power of nuclear is so great. And when I talk about I'll prevent World War III, I will. But the truth is that you have to, because this is no longer army tanks going back and forth and shooting at each other. This is a level of destruction and power that nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah, and actually, there's the bad side of nuclear, which is a nuclear war, very bad side. But there's also, I think, nuclear electricity generation is
Absolutely.
underrated.
You're right.
They're in a
And it's
bit of a
actually, people have
dueling
this fear
conversation
of
right here.
nuclear,
Trump's trying to focus
nuclear
on
electricity generation,
foreign policy with
but
nuclear.
it's
and
actually
Elon,
one of the safest
but it's
forms
good to bring up
of
nuclear. Nuclear energy is an
electricity
important
generation.
resource we need to
It's
develop in this
just a
country.
huge misunderstanding. And if you look at the injuries and deaths, caused by, say, I mean, I'm not going to try to pick on coal mining, but just any kind of mining operation. And there's a certain number of injuries and deaths per year. And you compare that to nuclear. Nuclear is actually way better. So it's underrated as an electricity source, and I think it's something that's worth reconsidering. But
Yes.
there's so much regulation that people can't get it done. So that
Maybe they'll have
sort
to
of
change the
have
name.
it,
The name is just, it's a rough name. There are some areas like
it's rough
when you
name.
see what happened in
Good bad
right.
branding. The
We'll have to
branding's rough.
rebrand it. We'll have to give it a good name. We'll name it after you or something. No, it has a branding problem. When you see what happened,
It does have a branding problem.
when you see what happened in Japan, where they say you won't be able to go on the land for about 3,000 years. Did you ever see that? And in Russia, where they had the problem, where they, there's a lot of bad things happened, and they have a problem. And they say that in 2,000 years, people will start to occupy the land again. You realize it's pretty bad.
No,
but,
that's not true.
But you're right about it. It's amazing.
It's actually not that bad. So like after Fukushima happened in Japan, like people were asking me in California, are we worried about like a nuclear cloud coming from Japan? I'm like, no, that's crazy. It's not even dangerous in Fukushima. I actually flew there and ate locally grown vegetables on TV to prove it. And I donated a solar water treatment, a solar powered system for a water treatment plant. And
but you haven't been feeling so well lately, and I'm worried about it.
No, but I mean,
I'm only kidding.
It's fine, It's like Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, but now they're like full cities again. So
right.
it's really not something that
That's right.
So it's not as scary as people think, basically. But let's see. I mean, are there some other topics we should touch on? Like lawfare. I think we need to be concerned about
what they've done to this country.
Obviously,
yeah. Well, we just won the big case in Florida.
Topic.
This was a Biden
I'm glad they got this in
did
before
something that's never been done in this country,
and
that's go after their political opponent, me, with this nonsense and just nonsense. And the big case in Florida we won, but they always pick a judge and a jury, and they use local DAs, they use the local attorney generals, like Fani, Fani, spelled Fani, Fani. And it's all a big hoax, and it's all run from there. Like in Manhattan, one of the top people from the Justice Department went in, ran Manhattan, ran the state. The Letitia James deal was run by a person from the Department of Justice, Biden. They've never done this before, and they set up a very bad precedent. It's called lawfare, warfare. It's a terrible thing, and never happened in our country. It does happen in banana republics and third world countries,
great point.
But it's never happened. And the incredible thing is it actually drove my numbers up because people see, fortunately I have a platform like you, or, in all fairness, like a conversation like this, where I can talk about it and people understand. I mean, you fight for election integrity and you end up getting indicted because you're fighting for election integrity. And when the day comes that you can't fight for election integrity, you don't have a country anymore. So what happens is they went after their political opponent, me. Now Biden's, close to vegetable stage, in my opinion. Okay. I looked at him today on the beach and I said, why would anybody allow him? The guy could barely walk. Why would anybody allow him? Does he have a political advisor that thinks this looks good? He thinks this looks good because it looks so bad, and it's ridiculous. I mean, and he's been doing that for a long time. He can't lift the chair. The chair weighs about 3 ounces. It's meant for children and old people to lift, and he can't lift it. The whole thing is crazy.
Well, he's clearly not, he's clearly like, we just don't have a president right
You
now.
don't have a president, and she's going to be worse than him because she is a San Francisco liberal who destroyed San Francisco, and then as Attorney General, she destroyed California. You talk about location, and we're talking about the sun and the water and all. There's nothing better than California. She has destroyed that. She was the original DA. She was the original in San Francisco. She was the original attorney general in California.
And she put
What she has done to
became famous
California
in
is,
Frisco.
well, you
putting
know
a black
better than
man in
I do.
jail
You
for
just
smoking
left
weed.
California for a lot of
She
those
went on,
reasons.
shot him in
And what
jail
she's
and
done
posted about smoking
with
weed.
crime, with cashless bail, where you kill somebody. I mean,
Well,
we
black
have
men never
states
forget
there you
that.
kill somebody and they let you out right away. I mean, you don't have to even put up, and then they never find the people unless they kill again, and then they let them out again. Our
Yeah.
country is becoming a very
It's
dangerous
10:06.
place. And she is a radical left San Francisco liberal. And now she's trying to protect. Now she's looking like she wants to be more Trump than Trump, if that's possible. I don't think it's possible, but she wants to be more Trump than
Well,
Trump.
yeah,
I want a wall. I want,
think that's
you know, she
yeah,
wants to release all the
yeah.
prisoners that are in detention. And some of these guys are really bad.
right.
That just came
Yeah, I
out
just saw
today.
that.
She
Yeah.
doesn't want to build the wall, even though the walls work. Walls and wheels. You know, in your business, everything you do is obsolete, almost, well, not the tunnels, but everything is obsolete. Even your rocket ships, they're like a month later, they're obsolete. You find a better way to. The only thing that's not obsolete is a wall and a wheel. And the wall, you know, I built hundreds of miles of wall.
Good
And
point.
that's why we had such good numbers. I was going to add 200
Yeah.
miles. We bought it. We could have flipped it up in 3 weeks, and they sold it for 5 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
That meant, I said, wow, that means that they actually do want to have open borders. She wants to have open borders, and now she's going like she's tough on the border. It's such a lie.
Yeah, this is simply not true. This is simply not
and
true.
everybody knows it's
simply
not true. It's a disgrace that she
Yeah.
can say it.
No, I mean, obviously, what's happening sort of overnight is they're rewriting history and making Kamala sound like a moderate when in fact she is far left, like far left.
Worse than Bernie Sanders. She is considered more liberal by far than Bernie Sanders. She's a radical left lunatic. And if she's going to be our president,
Well, I would disagree.
very quickly, you're not going to have a
I think
country
they're
anymore.
both-
And she'll go
I
back
think-
to all
yeah,
the
I think
things
Bernie
that she believes
technically
in.
works with
She
Bernie's
believes in
natural
defunding the
communist,
police. She
whereas,
believes in no fracking, zero.
Kamala
No-
is a
now all of a sudden
racist
she's saying,
authoritarian
no,
who wants to
I will.
use
I really want to
socialism
see
to
fracking.
maintain power.
The day
which is more
if they
more
got
about
in,
power.
the day she got in, she'll end fracking. And by the way, if people didn't think that, the lunatics that really believe in that, they won't vote for her. You know, like the Palestinians and Israel. She is so anti-Israel, and she's bad for both. Biden actually did something that was impossible. Both sides hate him. You know, both
Holy
sides.
crap, that's a good
That was a
point.
hard
Yeah.
thing to do. Unification.
Yeah, no. I mean, Netanyahu came to give a talk to a joint Senate and House sitting, and I was there, and Kamala stood him up. You know, what does that say?
I think it's highly
that's,
disrespectful. And I say, if you're a Jewish person or if you believe in Israel, if you're a person that, you know, is a very pro-Israel, if you vote for her, it's worse than Biden. And Biden was bad. But if you vote for her, you ought to have your head examined.
Yep.
And you see tonight, I mean, as we're doing this, I'm seeing reports coming that they expect an attack tonight or tomorrow from hundreds and maybe thousands of rockets. You know, their Iron Dome, as they call it, as we all call it, but their shield that they build, that can be swamped. We'll use the term that's appropriate, swamped. But they swamp it by shooting enough missiles. You know this better than anybody. By shooting enough missiles, they can't defend themselves. You know, they just obliterate the whole place. And that's what some people think they're looking to do. And we have no leadership. There's no respect for the United States of America with these
5
people.
more minutes, guys.
And I'm telling you, she'll be worse than him because she's a believer in being radical left, and he wasn't.
I think you're right. I mean, you really, it's important for the public that may be listening to this to look at Kamala's track record, you know, before the last month, and say, is that a track record you agree with? And I think if you're an independent moderate, you definitely would not agree with it, because it is her behavior has been far left, and we're seeing just an overnight propaganda attempt to rewrite history and make it sound like Kamala's moderate when she in fact is not moderate.
Well, her running mate signed into legislation, tampons in boys' bathrooms. Okay, now that's all I have to hear. Tampons in boys' bathrooms, and that means she believes in that too. I mean, she picked this guy because he was the closest to her. A lot of people thought she'd pick sort of the opposite, but she picked an anti-Israel radical left person. But she is far worse, they say, than Bernie Sanders. If we have her as a president, if we have a Democrat at this moment as a president, I don't think our country can survive.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Great point.
massive.
Made a great
I
point
think we're
about.
in massive trouble.
Well, that's where I'm going to end the stream,
frankly,
guys.
with the Kamala administration.
I know this is going to go on for at least another hour or two.
And
I wanted to get a few points out
and I
there about
think,
the interview.
I think really it's essential
thing
that
is,
you
know,
win
regardless of who
for
you
the good
vote
of the
for,
country
you vote for
this
Trump,
election, and I mean that's
or you vote
understating
for
my
Harris.
opinion.
Everyone else is
Now,
stupid.
you know,
And honestly,
you may have
Harris
seen
is
this, but
stupid in a different way.
I got a letter from the
But you're free to have your own political
EU
beliefs.
Commission, like
So
saying,
all that.
to not
Just
have
remember,
disinformation
if you vote
on
for it, you get it. And
during this
you
discussion that
vote
we're
for
having,
Biden,
like,
got
and
what they got.
there's a
Oh, wait.
lot of attempts to do
I'm checking out on the
censorship
stream tonight, guys. I'll
and to
talk to you
force
later.
censorship even on Americans from other countries, and